Most people believe turmeric is powerful, ancient, almost mystical. But here's the uncomfortable truth backed by modern science. For the majority of people using it, turmeric is doing almost nothing at all. Not because turmeric is weak, but because the way it's used ignores one critical biological rule of the human body. Curcumin, the compound responsible for turmeric's anti-inflammatory reputation, is fat-soluble. And without fat, your body treats it like a stranger it doesn't know what to do with. Study after study has shown that curcumin on its own has extremely poor bioavailability, meaning less than 1% of what you consume actually makes it into your bloodstream. And that's not a wellness myth, that's pharmacokinetics. In controlled trials, researchers have found that curcumin is rapidly metabolized, quickly eliminated, and barely detectable in blood plasma when consumed without a lipid carrier. That means you could sprinkle turmeric on your food every day for years and still fail to activate the molecular pathways responsible for lowering inflammation. This matters because chronic inflammation isn't just about sore joints or stiffness. It's now recognized as a root driver behind heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, autoimmune disorders, and even certain cancers. Inflammation is the slow fire burning underneath nearly every chronic disease we fear most, and curcumin has been shown to interact with inflammatory markers like NF-κB, COX-2, and TNF-alpha, but only if it can actually enter the body's cells. Without fat, curcumin stays trapped in the digestive tract, passing through unused excreted before it ever has a chance to signal your immune system or calm inflammatory cascades. Scientists understand this because curcumin's chemical structure is hydrophobic, meaning it repels water and binds preferentially to lipids, the same reason vitamins A, D, E, and K require fat to be absorbed. This is not optional biology, it's chemistry. When curcumin is consumed with healthy fats, absorption increases dramatically, in some studies by multiple orders of magnitude, allowing it to cross intestinal membranes, enter circulation, and reach tissues where inflammation silently damages cells every day. Traditional cultures didn't know the molecular names, but they knew the rules. In India, turmeric has never been used alone. It was simmered in ghee, coconut milk, or oils, slowly heated, allowing curcumin to dissolve into fat long before it ever touched the body. Modern research has confirmed what tradition instinctively practiced. Heat and fat work together to activate curcumin's potential. When curcumin binds to fat, it becomes more stable, more bioavailable, and more capable of penetrating cell membranes, including the blood-brain barrier, which is why emerging research is exploring curcumin's role in neuroinflammation and cognitive decline. Meanwhile, in the modern world, turmeric capsules are swallowed with water, powders are added to smoothies with zero fat, and people wonder why their inflammation markers never improve. It's not that turmeric failed them, it's that biology was ignored. Even more shocking is that inflammation doesn't always hurt, at least not at first. Low-grade chronic inflammation can exist for years without obvious symptoms while quietly damaging blood vessels, stiffening arteries, disrupting insulin signaling, and accelerating aging at the cellular level. Curcumin has been shown to influence oxidative stress, reduce inflammatory cytokines, and support mitochondrial function, but again, only when it can be absorbed. Without fat, those benefits remain theoretical. This is why some clinical trials show dramatic anti-inflammatory effects while others show almost none, because formulation matters more than dosage. You don't need more turmeric, you need smarter turmeric. When curcumin is paired with fats like coconut oil, olive oil, or avocado oil, it becomes biologically relevant, capable of doing what the science promises. Researchers studying lipid-based curcumin delivery systems have repeatedly shown improved plasma concentrations and longer circulation time, meaning curcumin stays active in the body instead of being flushed out within minutes. That extended presence is critical because inflammation is not a switch you flip, it's a process you interrupt repeatedly. This is also why curcumin is being studied alongside dietary fats for metabolic health, as inflammation and insulin resistance are deeply connected. Chronic inflammation interferes with insulin receptors, contributing to blood sugar instability and fat storage, and curcumin has shown potential to improve insulin sensitivity, but again, absorption is the gatekeeper. The uncomfortable reality is that the supplement industry rarely explains this clearly, because selling capsules is easier than teaching biochemistry. But your body doesn't care about marketing. It follows physical laws. Fat is the key that unlocks curcumin's door. Without it, turmeric is mostly color and hope. With it, turmeric becomes a molecular signal capable of interacting with the deepest systems governing inflammation, immunity, and aging. This is why people who change nothing except adding healthy fats to turmeric suddenly report reduced stiffness, improved digestion, and better recovery, not because of placebo, but because curcumin finally reaches the tissues where inflammation lives. The difference between turmeric that works and turmeric that doesn't is not dosage, not trend, not tradition versus science, but whether you respect how the human body absorbs what you give it. And once you understand that, turmeric stops being a trendy spice and starts becoming what research has been pointing to all along, a powerful anti-inflammatory tool, but only when paired with fat. Black pepper has been crowned the hero of turmeric for years, repeated in blogs, supplements, and wellness videos until it sounds like unquestionable truth, but the science tells a far more complicated and unsettling story. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, does not magically make turmeric powerful. It works by inhibiting liver enzymes responsible for detoxification, specifically glucuronidation, which slows the breakdown of curcumin and temporarily forces higher levels to remain in the bloodstream. That sounds beneficial until you realize what's actually happening. The body is being prevented from doing what it evolved to do, which is metabolize and clear compounds efficiently. This enzyme inhibition doesn't only affect curcumin, it can interfere with the metabolism of medications, hormones, and other nutrients, which is why piperine has been shown in studies to significantly alter drug bioavailability, sometimes unpredictably. In contrast, healthy fats don't block detox pathways. They work with human physiology, escorting curcumin across intestinal membranes the way the body naturally absorbs fat-soluble compounds. Piperine creates a bottleneck, while fats create a highway. That difference matters more than most people realize. Several clinical studies have demonstrated that while piperine can increase measurable curcumin levels in the blood, those levels spike briefly and then crash because the compound is still poorly distributed into tissues. Lipid-based absorption, on the other hand, leads to slower, steadier uptake and longer circulation time, which is exactly what's needed to calm chronic inflammation that never truly shuts off. Chronic inflammation isn't an emergency response. It's a background signal that damages arteries, stiffens joints, and disrupts metabolic signaling day after day. A temporary spike in curcumin doesn't resolve that. Cellular delivery does. Fat-soluble transport allows curcumin to integrate into cell membranes, influence inflammatory gene expression, and interact with lipid rafts where many immune signaling pathways operate. This is why researchers developing advanced curcumin formulations don't rely on piperine alone. They focus on emulsions, micelles, phospholipids, and nanolipid carriers. These technologies mimic what happens when turmeric is consumed with oils, not pepper. Even more concerning is that piperine can irritate the gastrointestinal lining in sensitive individuals, increasing intestinal permeability, commonly referred to as leaky gut, which paradoxically worsens inflammation over time. A compound meant to help inflammation can quietly fuel it if it compromises the gut barrier, where nearly 70% of the immune system resides. Healthy fats do the opposite. Olive oil contains oleocanthal, shown to inhibit COX enzymes in a manner similar to ibuprofen, while also supporting gut integrity. Coconut oil provides medium-chain triglycerides that are rapidly absorbed and transported directly to the liver, enhancing fat-soluble nutrient delivery without digestive stress. Avocado oil and monounsaturated fats support cell membrane fluidity, allowing signaling molecules like curcumin to function more effectively once inside the cell. This isn't theory, it's cellular biology. The obsession with black pepper also ignores a historical truth that should make us pause. Traditional cuisines that relied on turmeric for health never paired it primarily with pepper. They paired it with fats and heat. Ghee, coconut milk, sesame oil, and slow cooking weren't culinary accidents. They were functional systems that unlocked turmeric's benefits long before bioavailability was a scientific term. Modern wellness culture stripped turmeric of its context and replaced wisdom with shortcuts. The result is millions of people consuming turmeric in ways that look healthy but deliver very little physiological impact. Meanwhile, inflammation continues unchecked, silently driving insulin resistance, endothelial dysfunction, and accelerated aging. Research has shown that curcumin can downregulate NF-κB, one of the master switches of inflammation, but only when sufficient intracellular concentrations are reached. Piperine may raise blood levels briefly, but fats help curcumin cross the final barrier into the cell, where inflammation actually lives. That distinction is everything. It's also why some people report nausea, heartburn, or discomfort from turmeric supplements with black pepper, but feel better when turmeric is consumed with oils and food. The body recognizes fats as familiar. It has entire transport systems dedicated to them. It does not have such tolerance for enzyme inhibition as a long-term strategy. The uncomfortable reality is that black pepper became popular not because it was the best solution, but because it was cheap, simple, and marketable. Adding fats requires education, patience, and changing habits, and those don't sell as easily as a capsule with a buzzword. But biology doesn't respond to buzzwords. It responds to chemistry, structure, and delivery. Inflammation is not reduced by force. It's reduced by signaling, balance, and consistency. Healthy fats allow curcumin to become part of that signaling network, influencing immune cells, reducing oxidative stress, and supporting mitochondrial efficiency over time. Piperine, by comparison, is a blunt instrument. It forces curcumin to linger without ensuring it reaches the tissues that matter most. This is why advanced research increasingly views piperine as optional or even problematic, while lipid-based delivery is considered essential. The real upgrade to turmeric isn't more spice or more pepper. It's respecting how the human body absorbs and uses what it's given. When turmeric is paired with fats, it becomes aligned with human physiology instead of fighting against it. And that alignment is the difference between chasing inflammation and actually calming it. The biggest lie people believe about inflammation is that it takes extreme action to control it, massive doses, expensive supplements, dramatic detoxes, when in reality, the science keeps pointing to something far less glamorous and far more powerful: consistency. Chronic inflammation does not explode overnight. It builds silently, meal by meal, day by day, driven by repeated signals that tell the immune system to stay switched on. This is why researchers now describe inflammation as a lifestyle exposure rather than a single event, and why curcumin, despite its impressive molecular effects, fails when it's treated like a quick fix instead of a daily signal. Studies show that curcumin influences inflammatory pathways such as NF-κB, STAT3, and inflammatory cytokines only when exposure is sustained over time, not when it appears briefly and disappears. That means taking turmeric once in a while, or swallowing a capsule inconsistently, does almost nothing against inflammation that has been entrenched for years. Inflammation behaves more like a habit than an injury, and habits are only changed through repetition. This is where daily food-based use becomes critical. When turmeric is integrated into regular meals with healthy fats, it stops being a supplement and starts becoming part of the body's ongoing biochemical conversation. Research on dietary polyphenols consistently shows that lower doses consumed regularly outperform high doses taken sporadically, because the body responds to steady signaling, not spikes. Curcumin doesn't need to overwhelm the system. It needs to remind it over and over again to calm down. This matters because chronic inflammation is now linked to nearly every disease of aging, including cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, neurodegeneration, and even depression. Inflammation alters neurotransmitter balance, disrupts insulin signaling, damages blood vessels, and accelerates cellular aging through oxidative stress. These processes don't shut off with a single intervention. They slowly retreat when the inflammatory signal weakens consistently. That's why populations that consume turmeric daily as part of traditional diets show lower rates of inflammatory diseases, not because they consume more curcumin at once, but because they consume it repeatedly in bioavailable forms. Cooking turmeric into oils, stews, vegetables, and grains creates a pattern the body recognizes. Fat-soluble curcumin enters circulation, interacts with immune cells, and then fades, only to be reinforced again at the next meal. Over time, this repeated exposure can downregulate inflammatory gene expression and reduce baseline inflammatory markers. The science of epigenetics supports this, showing that dietary compounds can influence gene expression when exposure is chronic and rhythmic. This is also why people who try turmeric for a week and quit often report no benefit. while those who quietly add it to daily cooking notice subtle but meaningful changes over months: less stiffness, improved digestion, better recovery, and more stable energy. These aren't dramatic miracles. They are signs of inflammation slowly losing its grip. Another shocking reality is that inflammation is often invisible until it becomes irreversible. Arteries stiffen silently. Insulin resistance develops quietly. Neuroinflammation progresses long before memory symptoms appear. Curcumin has shown potential to influence all of these processes, but only when it becomes part of daily physiology rather than an occasional intervention. Consistent use also avoids one of the biggest pitfalls of supplement culture: overcorrection. High-dose curcumin supplements can cause gastrointestinal discomfort, nausea, or interactions with medications, leading people to abandon it altogether. Food-level doses consumed daily are gentler, safer, and more aligned with how the body evolved to interact with plant compounds. This is supported by research showing that whole food delivery of polyphenols produces fewer side effects and better long-term adherence. Inflammation doesn't respond to punishment, it responds to balance. Daily turmeric use with fats also pairs naturally with other anti-inflammatory behaviors: stable blood sugar, healthy lipid intake, and improved gut health. The gut is a major driver of systemic inflammation, and curcumin has been shown to support gut barrier function and microbial balance, but again, only with consistent exposure. The immune system takes cues from the gut every single day, and what you eat repeatedly matters far more than what you consume occasionally. This is why adding turmeric to eggs, vegetables, soups, teas, or dressings works better than chasing perfect formulations. It turns anti-inflammatory action into a habit instead of a project. Even the brain responds to consistency. Neuroinflammation is increasingly linked to anxiety, depression, and cognitive decline, and curcumin has been studied for its ability to influence brain-derived neurotrophic factor and reduce inflammatory signaling in neural tissue. But these effects emerge gradually, not overnight. The body needs time to trust a signal before it changes its baseline state. This is the part wellness culture rarely talks about, because patience doesn't sell. But biology is patient. It responds to what you do most often, not what you do most intensely. When turmeric becomes a daily input, paired with healthy fats that ensure absorption, it stops being a trend and starts becoming information. It tells your immune system day after day that the environment is safer, that the fire can lower, that repair can take priority over defense. That's how inflammation actually retreats, not through force, but through repetition. And that's why the most powerful way to use turmeric isn't to search for stronger versions, higher doses, or exotic combinations, but to use it simply, intelligently, and consistently until the body no longer remembers what constant inflammation felt like in the first place.